Good evening and welcome to Orenda Books at Bedtime. I'm Karen Sullivan, publisher of Orenda Books, and tonight we'll be listening to one of our authors reading from their own book from the comfort of their own home. From Australia, we've got Paul Hardesty reading from his brand new, beautiful literary thriller, Turbulent Wake. We've published 4 of Paul's previous books in the Claymore Straker series, but he's moved on to something different with this one, and I think you're going to absolutely love it. Paul will be over this spring for a number of festivals. You can catch him at Newcastle Noir and Crime Fest, and hopefully have a chance to hear from him in person. Although Paul has moved away from crime fiction for this one, there is, in fact, a mystery at its heart. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Ethan Schofield returns to the place of his birth to bury his father. Hidden in one of the rooms upstairs in the old man's house, he finds a strange manuscript, a collection of stories that seem to cover the whole of his father's turbulent life. As his own life starts to unravel, Ethan works his way through the manuscript, trying to find answers to the mysteries that have plagued him since he was a child. What happened to his little brother? Why was his mother taken from him? And why, in the end, when there was no one else, did his own father push him away? Swinging from the coral caves of the Caribbean to the dangerous deserts of Yemen and the wild rivers of Africa, this draws on the author's own experiences, and it's a bewitching, powerful, and deeply moving story of love and loss, exploring the indelible damage that we can do to those closest to us, and ultimately the power of redemption in a time of change. I'm thrilled now to hand you over to Paul Hardesty to read from Turbulent Wake.
Collapsing Infinity, the second story in Turbulent Wake. He opens his eyes and looks out at the snow-covered parkway and across the steaming white rooftops towards the dim memory of the mountains. A breakfast, cold porridge, a plastic bowl of gaily colored fruit salad, slightly burned toast, sits on the bed tray before him, ignored. Overnight, snow had drifted up and swallowed the cars that had been abandoned the night before. He'd lain awake and watched their owners, one after the other, stall on the hill, trying for a while to free themselves as the snow piled higher around them, and then finally giving up, trudging towards the lights of the hospital. Now, a lone plow, its orange light flashing in the pre-dawn gray, fights against the burial, its big V-blade sending twin streams of road snow curling away like surf breaking on a West African beach long ago. "How are we this morning, Mr. Schofield?" It's the nurse, the pretty one with the freckles and the face of a 10-year-old, open and innocent, the skin so smooth and supple, her bottom lip in a pout. He notices that she has applied some balm or gloss that makes her lips look wet. Something stirs deep inside of him, shivers like an echo for a moment, retreats. She reaches under him and plumps his pillow, then winds up his bed a bit so he can look outside without straining. She knows what he likes to do, does all day, every day. Stares out of the window across the winter city and the foothills that he can sometimes see in the distance if the day is cold and the cloud has moved off. Never the television. They must think he is crazy, all of them, with their drapes closed against the day and screens flickering the remaining hours away in front of their faces. "Did you sleep well?" she asks. He nods, doesn't smile. He's never been big on smiling. Perhaps it was because he'd never had his teeth fixed to make them look straight and white. They were good teeth, had outlasted other parts of the machinery. No decay, strong, did their job. It hadn't been later in life, after he'd married again and divorced, that he'd even realized they were an issue for others. He'd never smiled much before, anyway. He'd always wanted to be taken seriously, to be serious. Smiling wasn't serious. "No breakfast again?" said the nurse, checking his IV. He shakes his head. "No, thank you. The doctor says you must eat." He pushes the tray away. This was not how he'd imagined it would be, not how he'd ever wanted it. How did it happen? Your life unfolded, you made decisions or didn't, things happened and didn't, and what you thought was an ocean stretched out before you turned out to be only a teardrop. "I want you to help me," he says to the nurse. She smiles at him. Her teeth are even and white. Lovely. For a moment he imagines that she was the girl who'd married his son, had borne his grandsons. Of course, what can I do? She says. He points to the IV line. Morphine. She checks the line again, his chart. You can dose yourself, as you like. No, he says. I want more. He is conscious of his own voice, cracked and dry and old. A lot more. He looks straight into her clear, pale eyes. What beautiful children she would have made. He wonders if she knows yet that nothing else matters. She stands a moment looking down at him. You know I can't do that, Mr. Schofield. Why not? I'll never tell. He curls the corner of his lip. She doesn't flinch. If you are in pain, I will speak to the doctor about changing your dosage. He shakes his head. I like the pain. She doesn't understand, he knows. How can she? She still sees time as an ocean, can't fathom this most cruel of illusions. Maybe that's not so bad either, he thinks. Regardless, we're looking back at each other from different shores of the same ocean. The only difference is that I can see you, but you can't see me. Time has accelerated for me, and still passes so slowly for you. Relativity applies. My only language now is the handful of events that I can recall, that stand out among the thousands of hours and days passed undifferentiated in offices and schoolrooms and bedrooms. Necessary, perhaps, but now I regret each of those wasted days. But these 24 or so times of my life, he thinks, these might be worth telling, remembering. The problem is, I have no one left to tell them to. No one left. Perhaps that in itself is one of the stories, how I came to be alone. And he wonders if these few moments are not shared, not somehow transcribed. Will it be as if they had never occurred at all? And would it matter? He wonders if she would want to listen to his stories, those that might provide her with some glimpse of how to navigate the collapsing infinity between them. The nurse is standing there, looking at him while he is thinking this. Do you want me to get the doctor? She asks. He shakes his head slowly. The doctor can't help me, he says. But you can.
Thanks very much, Paul. That was stunning. See you next week, everyone, 8 o'clock Sunday night for another episode of Orenda Books at Bedtime.